so the path to whatever like dream I had, it was totally erased from me. I didn't see it at all. It was like those 8 years of no's were I don't know how this will ever happen, but I gotta keep trying.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kaufman.
Wow. I don't even know where to start with this one. Mary's crazy empowering. Resilience is the word that kept springing to mind. It's truly insane in the most positive way in how it took Mary roughly 8 years to get her first gig and how she didn't give up, knowing that deep down it would all work out and be okay. I admire this trait. I've been reflecting on it ever since we first spoke. Mary's just fantastic, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So let's get into it and officially introduce today's guest. Mary Holland is an actor, writer, and comedian, as well as an Andy Kaufman Award nominee. She can currently be seen as one of the leads in the Netflix film Senior Year opposite Rebel Wilson, and earlier this year she starred opposite Kristen Bell in the Netflix miniseries The Woman in the House. Mary recently wrapped the John Slattery directed feature MAGGIE Moore's opposite John Hamm and Tina Fey, and also reoccurs on the Apple series The Big Door Prize from SCHITT'S CREEK producer David West Reed. She's also received rave reviews for her performance in the feature comedy Golden Arm, which is currently available on demand. Golden Arm was an official selection for the SXSW Film Festival in 2020. We're not quite done yet. Mary's also the co-writer and co-star of the Hulu film Happiest Season, which broke streaming records for Hulu. Last year, Mary starred opposite Rory Scovel in Robbie and appeared in the second season of Amazon's hit series Homecoming and the Apple series Physical opposite Rose Byrne. She's also a writer on the latest season of the hit animated series Big Mouth. After being named a new face at the prestigious Montreal Just for Laughs Festival, Mary was named as one of Time Out magazine's 10 comedians to watch in 2016, and among Vulture's 50 comedians you should know. Since then, Mary has worked alongside some of comedy's biggest names in a heavily recurring role on Veep, guest appearances in both Silicon Valley and New Girl, as well as starring alongside Carol Burnett in the ABC pilot Household Name. Mary also played one of the leads in Blunt Talk opposite Patrick Stewart, Jackie Weaver, and Dolly Wells. Her other credits include Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, Curb Your Enthusiasm, And Then There Was Five, and Unicorn Store. Plus, she's also a member of the comedy troupe Wild Horses. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, such as talking about escape rooms, being an improv guru, trust and collaboration, not getting your first option, resilience, taking 8 years to book her first gig, fear, flow state, and becoming a leading lady. Also, before we get into this chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kaufman. That's Kaufman with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I find it adds a new element and dynamic to these chats. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the video to follow the following day. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's epic episode. Okay, maybe we'll start with something a bit serious. I hope you're ready for this.
Oh my God.
I have a quote from you, and I need you to explain this to me like I'm an adult that's got Facebook for the first time.
Oh no, what is this quote?
I have a deep, abiding passion for escape rooms. Please explain
baby.
your love of escape rooms to me.
Okay, let me tell you something. Escape rooms are my love language. escape rooms are where I feel the most seen, the most heard.
Wow.
This is where it's so exciting and stimulating. I think escape rooms, they are my favorite activity to do. And I also just love in social situations where you're doing an activity, you're like collaborating on something. And that's exactly what escape rooms are. It's just a series of puzzles that you work together to solve. And I love it so much. I thrive off that. I love it.
You're going to have to explain what type of leader you are in these situations. There's some that just stay back. There's some who like, this is your strength, and you gather the team together.
Yeah. I'm not the one who's assigning roles. And there's a group that I do a lot of escape rooms with, and we've really kind of figured out a rhythm with each other.
Wow.
But it's not so much that one person is leading and other people are hanging back. I would say we're all working to gather information and share information with each other. So it never feels like I'll just stay back until someone tells me what to do. I'm actively doing things. And then and communicating that with my teammates. So it's such a great lesson in communication, which is something we all need, isn't it?
I agree. I also feel like it'd be a great job interview, especially if you don't know if you want to work with this person. You bring him in the escape room and you see the highs and the lows.
You do, because you get very frustrated and you're trying to figure things out. And some of the puzzles are so hard and so challenging, and some of them are very physical. Like I think it is a really nice way to get to know somebody, is to do an escape room with them.
How did you I only found out what escape rooms were the last few years. How did you ever find out about them?
How did I find out about them? The first one I did, it was years ago now. It would have been like 2014 maybe. And it was, there are a lot of escape rooms in LA. And I was like trying to think of a fun activity for a big group of friends to do. And I had heard of escape rooms from TV or something like that. And I looked up this one room and we went and we did it. And it was so much fun, but there were a lot of us. I think there were like 10 of us. Ooh. And what I have learned from that experience is that the max 4 people.
That's very controversial.
Max 4 people. And here's why. If you get too many people, then that thing does happen where somebody's not doing something, or many people are not doing something, and they're not getting the full experience. They feel left out. They're just kind of shuffled from space to space within that room, and they're not contributing or feeling like they're a valuable part of the team. And I think with 4 people, that's enough people for you to escape successfully, but also for everybody to be constantly doing things and working on things together. So that's why I feel that that's a good number.
Okay.
But anyway, so that was the first escape room I did. And then I didn't do another one for like another 4 years or something after that. And I went to, my friend Clea was having a birthday. She and her wife were doing an escape room for her birthday and invited me to join. And I tell you what, that experience, all 3 of us were like, our lives have just changed.
Just 3 of you?
Just 3 of us.
Wow, you guys must be besties.
Oh, yes. We're so incredibly bonded. And I give a lot of credit to escape rooms for doing that. But as of now, I've done over 200.
What? 200? Okay. Does that include doing things more than once, I would assume? Or does LA have that many?
Well, no, I've done some in Nashville and some in New York and some in, any city I travel to, I'm looking up.
Oh, that is so cool. What's your funniest experience doing an escape room?
My funniest experience?
Yeah, or hardest.
Oh, God. Well, I would say this is funny. There was an escape room we did. I won't say where or what it is because I don't want to give anything away, but there was a sign that that said, we were looking for a key or something to open a thing up. And there was a sign on the wall that was hidden behind some stuff that I saw and nobody had seen it yet. And so I like just read it out loud very quickly. I was like, wait, everybody, Skeletonky opens the chest. And like thinking, oh, Skeletonky, there's somebody named Skeletonky that has the key to open this chest. And my friend was like, skeleton key opens the chest.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's the kind of thing that I love. The sense of urgency that escape rooms have, because you have a limited amount of time to solve all these puzzles. It makes it so exciting. And little moments like that happen all the time. It's so fun. It's so funny and playful.
I have done a few. One, two of my friends speak fluent Hebrew, and they had kind of this system, sort of. And they had this system where I think each Hebrew letter referred to as a number. So it's kind of like a code, or was a code.
Oh,
but
right, yes.
They bypassed like 5 steps because they could just read the Hebrew and understood what it meant.
Oh,
and so we just finished it in like a record time. And they're like, how did you do that?
Amazing.
We're just geniuses.
See, and that's the thing, is you never know what knowledge you have or what skills you have that are going to help you in those rooms. And I just think that's so cool.
Well, it's probably the only time that they've used it in Australia. So that's like 10 years of education. It made it worthwhile.
Yeah, made it worthwhile.
I also find it really interesting because the way that you're talking about the collaboration and you're working together would also be similar to improv. And I'm sure you started improv well before. Do you see a similarity between the two?
1000%. Yes, I totally do. And I think it is exactly what you're pointing to, which is the collaboration, the ensemble, the group trust that has to happen when you do either an escape room or an improv show. I mean, with an improv show, you have to get so comfortable not knowing what's going to happen. And the way that you build that for yourself is to fully trust the people you're playing with and trust that they have your back and you are not going to fail.
I have many a question on this because I know you're an improv pro and you perform quite regularly as well. Trust is the name of the game in life. And that can be very hard, especially when we're starting out, or even if you've been doing it for a few years and you're in a new team and you've got new people, that can be really challenging.
Totally.
Has improv helped you with how you trust people, or you view that term differently?
Yes, I would say, and you could totally point out parts of this that are not positive, but in my experience, it is a mostly positive thing, which is that I trust people right away. I trust people right away. And I think that is from improv and playing with so many, like just showing up to a show, not knowing who's going to play, playing with somebody I've never met before. And then suddenly we're doing like a 90-minute improv show.
That's cool.
My like default is I fully trust you. I fully trust what you're doing. Details. Yeah. And I think that applies to any kind of creative work that I do. There's like a right away trust is there. And I think that what I mean when I say, oh, you could hear that and think maybe that's not such a positive thing.
No, I think it's positive.
But yeah, I think it is too. And for sure there's situations where it's good to be more cautious and let trust be earned. But I think that my default mindset is full on. I totally trust you. We're gonna jump off this edge together, and I know it's gonna be fine.
Oh, I like that.
Where I start.
I think that's actually really positive because you've got that like personal knowing and power, and you're creating hopefully a dynamic that allows for that. I might be jumping the gun. I heard you talk on another podcast about intuition and how you've been working at it and how you've really improved at it over time. And that would also come into it. I'm sure now that you've done it, you've had enough experience where you can you trust someone, but you probably pick up a little bit quicker if something's a bit dodgy or whatever the situation is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's sort of an immediate vulnerability that happens in the improv space, but then also in any kind of creative space. In order to get to access the parts of you that need to be accessed to make this art, you have to be vulnerable. Like there's no way to not be. And so yeah, I think that immediate vulnerability has sharpened a sense of what I feel about a situation.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So I know that, and you're very modest, but you are a legit pro. When you were first starting out, how were you with vulnerability? Were you good at the start just as an improviser? Did you just get it straight away, or was it?
Oh no. What I did get straight away was the joy of it, the joy of
Nice.
improv. Like I was not good at all. And so much of the, you could argue, still aren't, but some of the,
Agree to disagree.
some of the like, when you start taking improv classes, especially with long form, you're learning, there's a lot of math that's happening, a lot of like structure things you're learning that can get very cerebral and really heady. And once you have internalized those lessons and are able to kind of know the structure in your bones and know how like the mechanics of improv work, then you can kind of just trust that you know that and then totally lose yourself in the play. But I would say when I first started, I was just full on play. I was like, play. I don't need to make sense of anything. I don't need to like tie it to anything. I just love this playing pretend and the freedom to do that and the pure creativity of it. There's no set, there's nothing. It's just two chairs and we get to like make whole worlds. And I loved that. It was so joyful to me. And such an amazing outlet coming from theater school and that kind of training where the theater school that I went to for college, we did Meisner technique, which has like an improv base to it. You know, before you ever touch a script, you do repetition exercises and all these exercises that are geared to make you be a performer who's an active listener.
Oh, nice.
Who's not planning anything, who's able to like be in the moment. And so coming from that background, we still like, when we did shows, it was all scripted. So it was all, and you have blocking and you have sets and you have, you know, it's very planned. There's freedom within it, but you have created a show and you're presenting that show. And so then when I came to improv and discovered the play of it and connecting those two together of like, oh, I'm taking this thing from theater school of active listening and being in the moment and having a feeling about what is being said to me, and then using it in this space of pure playing pretend and creating. It felt very natural to me to step into that space. But again, my shows were very bad.
You're being very modest, but that is awesome to hear. And you know what I've noticed, please correct me if your experience is different, that first of all, when the actors do improv, they're so much better than everyone else. But besides that, typically like from theater school, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's this becoming to be a serious actor, and improv takes away from the seriousness.
Right.
Has your experience, when you were first doing improv, were you aspiring to be a, inverted commas, a serious actor? You're a very good actor, but as a serious actor.
I did. Yeah, I did. And still do. I dream of doing period films, of doing like, you know, the A24 dramas. Like I dream of getting to occupy all of those spaces as an actor. And definitely when I moved to LA, knowing comedy was for sure a part of what I wanted to do, but it was, my dreams were very expansive of the types of work that I would want to do. So I definitely came into improv, maybe not so much thinking I'm only a serious actress, but having that with me always, that kind of the emotional commitment it would take to be a dramatic actress. I think I then brought that to my improv and made it, for me, it made it, those shows so rich. And so it never felt like, oh, I'm sacrificing this meaty emotional stuff for just, you know, surface level comedy. It never felt like that to me. Those two work together in my experience. Was the bringing the meaty emotional commitment makes the comedy funny.
I agree. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great. So when you you did improv before, was that in Chicago?
Yeah, I did an intensive at IO in Chicago one summer, which is where you do, it's 5 levels. The IO training program was at that time. So we did a level a week, 6 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it moved very fast, but it was such a great crash course in what improv was. And I saw a ton of shows, and I was just blown away and fell in love with the whole thing.
That is crazy. So I think I read somewhere, you're going to have to tell me your experience with Juilliard. I think you tried to get into Juilliard and then you went through another way, which sounded like it had presented many positives, but that was the avenue you were going. Yeah, let's start there.
Okay, great.
Because I could just talk about this for ages. Can you explain where you're at when you were first starting, when you wanted to get into Juilliard, and I don't think you're accepted at the start?
And I was never accepted. I did want to go to Juilliard. I like coming from a really small town in Virginia. I, of course, had no concept of how one goes about pursuing a career in acting, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. That was the only option in my mind, was I am going to pursue this. And not having a clear path in my head of how to do that, there was a woman from my hometown who was a few years older than me, and she had gone to Juilliard. And so I was like, that's how you do it. You audition for the most prestigious acting program in the country. You get into that, you graduate from that, and then you're an actor. And that was like the path that I saw in my head. And I asked her about that, and she told me about this boarding school in Michigan that she went to for her last few years of high school, and that it prepared her to audition for Juilliard. And then that's how it kind of happened for her. So I was a sophomore in high school at that time. So I looked into this boarding school. My mom and I went up and visited. We saw a show there. I was so obsessed with this school. It was like a level of production I had never seen in my life. And I auditioned and I did not get in. And I remember the day that my mom like broke the news to me that I hadn't gotten into Interlochen, which was the name of the school, that boarding school. And I was so crushed, because that was the only path I knew about. And so it was like, if that's not panning out, is this not going to happen? And that night I ate Wendy's and I watched First Wives Club as self-care as a 15-year-old. And then I kind of let it go and tried to get excited about, any theater that was happening in my hometown. And then one day my mom came home and she was I was like sitting in a car with my friend in my driveway talking, and I saw my mom drive up, and she was like bouncing up and down in her seat, and she ran out of the car, and she was like, "You're in, you're in, you're in." And she hadn't told me, but when they rejected me, they said I was on a wait list. But she didn't tell me because she didn't want me to get my hopes up. And then I got in off the wait list.
That is very exciting. It's also
Yeah.
interesting with the only path, and every single person on this podcast has had a completely different experience, and no one
Right.
that I know has gone through the same path. And I know your parents were doctors, and as a
Right.
doctor, you know, you go to college, you start, and there's a whole like mapped out process, but doing
Yeah.
what you do, it's all so different. And so
So different.
even though you probably had a very small lapse, I'm sure you were thinking about like, how do I do this, or what am I going to do? You still probably, you're like, I definitely want to do it. You were probably just a bit confused or lost in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I did audition for Juilliard so I went to Interlochen those 2 years. They were amazing. And then after that, I was like, Juilliard is like, that's the one. I gotta go there. And I auditioned, and it was, such a painful audition. It was bad and did not get in. But that ended up being for the best. And I can't imagine what my path would have been if I had gone there, you know?
Oh, please expand on that. I went for the best. Everyone that I speak to says that, and it's just so awesome to hear, because your whole
Yeah.
life would be different, and you've done so much in your life. You met so many people along the way. Is that how it's like the butterfly effect? If you
Totally.
went there, you would have lost it all.
And I wouldn't trade any of it in for anything. The path that I have been on since that moment, and even before that moment, I feel in my heart that was exactly what needed to happen in the way that it needed to unfold. And I think, I can't even, I don't want the life that had me at Juilliard, you know, having that perspective on it.
Oh, okay. That is the best perspective one can have. Did you know that in the moment?
No.
Yeah, no one ever
Of course
does.
not. No. Yeah. In the moment I was like, I suck. I fucking hate myself. Yeah. And I auditioned for a lot of theater programs and didn't get into almost all of them. And the one I did get into, I really connected with the professor that I had auditioned for, and loved her. And it was at this BFA program at this tiny, the town was tiny, but the school is like a state school. It's Northern Illinois University, so it was not tiny. But the theater department was very small, and the teachers there were just incredible. And so
I thought you were going to say the other way around.
no, they were amazing. They were amazing.
Good.
Yeah, we had really, really awesome teachers, and we did very cool productions, even though we didn't have like a big fancy budget like we maybe would have or we definitely would have if I had gotten into Juilliard or something. It was, but there was something really special about doing an acting class in a room that had like exposed insulation and stuff. Like it was very raw, and we were all so committed being there and learning in that environment, and it just was great.
What I've noticed is, you know, I have heard where a few people wanted to go to Juilliard and they went through another avenue, and they're similar to you, how they say it was a great experience. But what I've also noticed that when we go to sometimes a different path, and it might be inverted commas smaller, you know, you can build connections, the collaborations there, strong friendships, because it's inverted commas a bit smaller. I know Juilliard only takes a certain amount of people, but I also noticed that it builds resilience.
Yeah.
Did you notice that with you and maybe your peer group?
Yeah, I think it did build resilience. I think there was the thing that I sort of had to learn, and it's a lesson I'm still learning, I think, is that you can have an idea in your head about what is going to make you official or legit or successful. Like you have an image in your head, you have a title in your head, or a place. But I think the lesson that I learned in that time was that none of that means anything. None of those preconceived ideas of, oh, if I just get blank, then I'll be blank.
Yeah.
Resilience, I think, is such a great word for what that whole experience built in me, because I learned that that's not the point, and shouldn't be the point of what we're doing here. You know what I mean? And so I think in since then, having that understanding of expectations versus what's happening in the moment, or the journey, I have really learned to make peace with expectations not happening.
Oh, okay. I have so many questions on that, because that is the industry. Yeses turns to no's, and I'll ask a second component to this. You might get something and then it just doesn't happen, or a show gets cancelled. It doesn't get another season. But why you're also, one of the many things that make you brilliant is that I think you're auditioning for 8 or so years and you didn't get anything, and you kept on going and just pursuing. And I just find that amazing, because it sounds like you obviously knew at some level, I'm sure there were doubts along the way, that you're actually capable and good. But for 8 years, and you still kept on going. And I have your resume out and people have heard it. And that's just a small snippet of, inverted commas, the success. There's, as you said, there's the friendships, the collaboration, the resilience, or just the life lessons that you've learned along the way. I think it's just so crazy in such a beautiful way that you continued for 8 years. Please tell me about that experience. I know that's a long time.
That means a lot. Thank you. Yeah, it was brutal. It was heartbreaking and devastating. Not that I expected to move out to LA and like instantly start working, because I mean, that's the one thing that's so consistently pounded into your head once you say, I want to be an actor, is it's going to be hard, or you're going to hear no a lot. Like anybody who's made the statement of wanting to do this has been aware of that being the reality. But I think what I wasn't prepared for was for there to be absolutely no idea of how you even go about doing it. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is I was fortunate enough to have representation where I did go out on auditions, and of course none of them panned out. But I think in that, the experience I had in those many rejections was, there was a beating down within me of that sense of, oh yeah, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do it, and then that leads to that star that I see in the sky. And having all of those no's, I suddenly was like, I don't see how I get to that star anymore. I don't see how I get to it. And I'm looking around me and I'm seeing all these other amazingly talented people who are similar to me in type or something. And I'm like, well, why would they go with this? Would they got that? Like, so the path to whatever like dream I had, it was totally erased from me. I didn't see it at all. It was like those 8 years of no's were I don't know how this will ever happen, but I gotta keep trying. And I don't even know that the narrative in my head was, I'm not going to give up, as much as it was like, I'm meant for that dream, whatever that is. I know I'm meant for that. And so I just have to believe it's going to come some way.
Is that a knowing? Is that just regardless of like the fame and the fortune, like knowing that this is something you're meant to do in your heart?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, I think that's like, I mean, anybody who, there's a certain amount of delusion we have to keep trying this in the face of so many no's. You kind of have to have that candle within that burns always. That's like, I know I can do this. I know I am meant to do this. That is the hope that propels me through all of the no's and all of the things that fall apart and all of the situations that are where I'm working on a job that has absolutely nothing to do with what I want to be doing. That like knowing I'm meant to do it, that's the thing that keeps you trying, that keeps you being okay with all the no's. And then I think another lesson I learned in that time, and thank God for improv in that time, was I learned to like let go of the distant dream I had. Not let it go as in, oh, it's never going to happen, but not have it be looming over me so much. And instead trust I'm going to end up there somehow. And instead shift my focus to what is in front of me that I can be engaging in and doing. And that was improv, doing indie improv shows, like playing with all different kinds of people, doing practice groups, doing all of that was right in front of me. And I was loving it so much. And so I tried to just let go of the expectations again, or the vision I had, and instead just hold on to my candle and keep doing what I loved in the moment.
Oh, that is amazing. And it's also a similar philosophy to me. I wonder if you had this experience. When I first started writing, and I came from an accounting background, was not the world's best writer, let's put it that way. And I'm still obviously not the world's best writer. And although I've had like producers and people look at my stuff, or they're looking at it now. So hopefully something gets made.
Oh, good.
Thank you. I know we'll talk about your writing in a sec. And the journey of a few years ago of like leaving accounting to pursue this, and people think you're crazy. And I know your parents were doctors, my dad's in the business world. And so people, I'm sure maybe in your circles, although they're probably being supportive, they think you're crazy. And after, it's been a few years, they're probably worrying. And then it's nice to kind of look at the journey. So from where I was with my writing to where I am now, I'm like, wow, I needed all of that, because now I can hopefully, inverted commas, I'm a good writer. I've got a lot to learn and blah, 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 blah. I've written a lot of stuff. But if I didn't go through all of that, and let's say I sold my first script, I would have failed. I would have burnt out. I didn't learn what I needed to, and I'm still going to learn more. So I was wondering, do you have a similar experience like that? Like, what about like when the parents and the friends probably think you're a little bit crazy, even though they're probably supportive, because they're not seeing, inverted commas, the results happen?
Right. I was fortunate enough to have parents who were like, when I said I want to audition for Interlochen, my mom was like, okay, let's do it. Let's make, like, they were very supportive for sure, as were my friends. But I think that there was a little bit of definitely not a conscious thing, but I think something I would pick up on from family members or people growing up who I would share this dream with, a little bit of a, okay.
Yep, that's it. That's it. Yep.
Okay, that's wonderful. And good luck to you. We'll be rooting for you, but okay. Like a sort of, it wasn't that they didn't believe in me. I think there's such a, it's so starry-eyed.
It's a different world, it's like a different language.
And maybe it feels a little naive to believe, like, from their point of view, like, oh, she doesn't know how it works. But it's
Mm.
great that she thinks she can do it.
I know. Yeah. Go on.
No, that's it. That's it.
No, it's just, but this is why I love the knowing. Some people have the knowing of, but they're more attracted to the fame and the fortune, which we've all had. Everyone's had that experience. But then what it sounds like, you went back to that candle. So you're going back to you because you actually have to do it. And I always say the hell is like above our pay grade. We just need to continue.
Yeah. I think that's such a great philosophy is don't worry about the how. The how will happen.
Yeah. It's easier said than done.
Oh my God. Yes. And even like that's also like a lesson I can like logically know and not emotionally feel.
I know. You have to come back to it.
Yeah.
So in those 8 years, did you have moments of that you're going to quit? Were there ever a period where you're like, you know what, I'm going to take a break from auditioning? Or was it just doing improv and doing your day jobs? I know that you were you're a dog. Was it a dog walker? You're doing all of these other things. What actually kept, because we can become a bit bitter. But I know you had that knowing there would still be moments where you're like, can I actually do this? How am I going to do this? And all of that stuff.
Totally, yeah.
But how did you actually like push through?
I think it really was improv for me. It really was that having that creative outlet and getting to just constantly create and build things with people. I think that because then it didn't feel like I was not getting the chance to perform or to do the art that I love. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I definitely wasn't getting paid for it. And I for sure was not able to make a living from doing it. But I think that really highlighted for me that being able to make a living from it, that is the dream, insofar as it just means I'll get to keep doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And so I think that really highlighted for me, like, oh, I may not be able to like pay my rent with doing improv, but God, I am doing the thing I came out here to do, which is to play and perform and act and create. So yeah, I worked so many different day jobs in that time. And yes, I would have loved to have like gotten a TV show or gotten to do something where then financially I'm more taken care of and I can really lean into this life. But I was sad, of course, and disappointed at times and felt very lost and hopeless. But I also think the backbone of my experience in that time was I get to do this with people that are making me laugh and that I'm interested in and curious by and inspired by. And that's it. That's the dream. And so, yeah, I think that helped.
I think that's amazing. And there's an example that springs to mind. Well, firstly on that, you put yourself in the best position to succeed. And people, me being people, we can have a warped perspective that success is purely money. And obviously we want money to live our best life and all of that stuff.
Course, yeah.
But sometimes when that's not available to us, what can we do to put us in the best position to succeed? And you did that with improv. Not only is it helping you professionally, it's also helping you mentally, just playing and have fun and all of that stuff. There's 1,000 other emotions that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
It's also kind of like therapy on drugs. But
it is.
Yeah. And why I find this so amazing is I came from a background where we kind of saw success as purely like status and money in a sense, like not purely, but that was like the goal, be a doctor, lawyer, accountant. And one of my friends, it really changed my perspective on all of this. He wanted to be in our sports industry, but there's very few jobs. Our sports industry is a lot smaller than in America. So how do you get there? It's almost like a networking game. So what he did was, I think on the weekends, he'd wake up early and he'd volunteer for the lesser sport clubs. And he did that every week for a while, then eventually built up and now it's his full-time job. And I remember people like, but you're not earning money. And he actually received those comments. And I was like, but look what he's doing. He's putting himself in the best position to succeed. He loves it. He's learning. He's growing. He's still doing other things so he can survive, but he's putting himself in the best position to succeed. And if he didn't do that, he wouldn't have been successful in what he's doing now. So it's the same with you and improv in that sense as well.
Yeah. And I think you're totally right about that definition of success. And to me, I for sure see success. For so long it was like, well, success is Juilliard and it's an Oscar and it's, getting money to do a cool movie or something like that success. And hey, I wouldn't be mad at it if all that happened. But I think success, the lesson I have learned and still remind myself of, is that success is actually, to me, an abundance of opportunities to do what I love to do. And so I think the things that we think of with success, like, having enough money, that would be great insofar as that puts me in a position where I get to keep doing what I love to do. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
And thinking about career-wise, working, going from a job to another job to another job is the dream. And it's for that reason, which is an opportunity to keep doing what I love. And success to me is if that river is constantly flowing.
That is a great take. And it's so nice to hear that experience. What was the moment like when you could kind of say, I don't need to do these day jobs anymore? Was there a specific moment or anything that springs to mind?
Let's see. It was a gradual transition, I think. I remember I did a Cascade commercial. That was the first like professional job that I had gotten. And with, maybe this is true in theater too, but with commercials and TV and all that, you have to kind of balance your finances yourself. You'll get sort of a chunk for that job, and it's great, but you also have to make that last for however long.
Yep.
So I remember from that Cascade getting this like, it wasn't a ton of money or anything, but it was like definitely enough where I was looking at it and I was like, I'll never have to work again, which is for sure not true. And so I stopped doing the dog walking. I stopped. I was still doing improv shows. I had started coaching improv at that point and teaching improv, and I loved doing that. So I kept doing that. And then that money ran out very quickly. And
just buying like gold chains and cars and bling.
Well, yeah. And of course, all my diamonds, which I have to have, and the Lamborghini,
of course.
But just cost of living in Los Angeles, will drain your account so quickly. And there was a point where I had $0. $0 in my bank account. And I had to borrow money from my parents to pay our internet bill. I'll never forget that. And that was the moment when I was like, I need to figure something out financially. And then, I kept teaching, I think, but then I started getting more acting jobs. And so I was able to it was sort of, it was over several months where it was like, oh my God, I have nothing. I'm going to keep trying to scrape by with teaching, because that has something to do with what I want to be doing. I'm teaching him. I'm in the improv world. If I can sustain myself with this, that's great. And then the job started happening.
Well, it's a good money lesson and I know not that everyone else can have this experience, but in your experience, it's a good money lesson that you do have. And I'm sure you didn't want to have to do this. You know that you'll be okay. You've got your parents and they love you and they can support you. At that moment, I'm sure that kind of shook you up a little bit and really made you go, okay, I need to be better with my finances or figure out how I can do this. So it's a good lesson.
Yes. It was a good lesson.
There's an example that springs to mind. Can't remember exactly, but essentially This guy was it was a reoccurring on a very big sitcom many years ago. And he got a lot of money, and then eventually he lost it for whatever reason. And he was basically bankrupt. And he was
Oh my
so
God.
devastated, and he went to his parents for money. And his dad goes, "This is an amazing experience for you, because you're never going to let yourself do this again. And you do have the support of your family, and you're going to be okay."
Yeah.
And he sees that as a crucial moment in his development, which
Yeah.
is, I know that we weren't quite at that stage, but it really, sometimes through these really challenging times, can really push us in, or at least shift our mind in a different direction. And it did with you. It forced you to do things differently as well. Or
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I learned so much about money in that moment. And then also that you can never just think of an acting job, even like if you have like dollar signs in your eyes about like what is being presented to you of like, this is what will pay you to do this job. You can never assume that you have that money.
Yeah.
And it's best to pretend like you're never going to get money for the next year. That's kind of how the mindset that I adopted from that experience was, well, no other money's coming in. So I got to like figure out what I'm doing here. And then yeah.
And live off that.
Live off that.
This would have also been a bit of a mind fuck. You know, it's been 8 years. You booked that commercial, and then it looks like on paper you've just been working pretty consistently ever since, which is huge credit. I'm sure there's gaps in between, and I don't know the insides of it. But then let's just say you're on a show, you're getting regular money that's coming through, and then either the show just doesn't go ahead, like for the next season. How do you deal with that? Because that's a real seesaw.
Yeah.
That's like the up and the down. And
oh yeah, it's very hard because the one thing that you're craving so much in this industry, and it's ever elusive, is stability and predictability. Yeah. You never have that. And so unless you are on a TV show that has multiple seasons, and then you know, like, this is what my life will be, this is what my finances will be, I have an understanding, I can plan for the next few years or whatever. And so when that falls away, or you only get one season, or you don't even get a season, you just have done a pilot, it's devastating, it's heartbreaking, and you just kind of let yourself be devastated and then get back at it.
Does it get easier?
Yeah, no, but you just get, it's almost like you become at peace with the fact that failure is going to be your constant companion through this. He may not, or she may not, or they may not be like always in the spotlight, but they're right there, and they're just going to be, they're part of the journey with you. And so I think making peace with that doesn't make those losses or failures or rejections any less painful, but you just kind of have a peace with the fact that it's going to happen and will keep happening, you know.
That's a very interesting take. We've spoken about how you've had to redefine success. So what does failure mean to you now?
Failure to me now, I feel, is I feel like it sucks, but I have to have it. I gotta have it. You know what I mean? You have to. The only way you experience success is with the failure.
What is failure to you? Is that not getting the job? Is that it not progressing?
Right. Oh, I see. Yeah. Failure to me, I think, is an opportunity comes to an end. one of an opportunity in that river of hopefully success. You've latched onto this opportunity and it closes, it ends.
As in it doesn't progress. So let's just say you're doing season 1 of some show.
I guess. Yeah.
And you feel you've done a great job, you've enjoyed it, you've had a great relationship with the cast, but it doesn't go ahead to season 2. Is that a failure to you?
Oh gosh. now it feels like too extreme a word for that. Yeah. I think this is very interesting. Maybe to me it's more failure is more I didn't do enough on my end to meet an opportunity.
Interesting.
Maybe that's what it is. I mean, because failure to me, yeah, I don't know. It's very hard to define because I experience it in so many ways.
But it's interesting because what it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that as well you're saying earlier is that if you feel that you've done the best that you can, you've taken a lot out of it, you've potentially had great experiences regardless of the outcome, because it's also out of your control. That's not so much a failure. It's if you could have done more in your own way. Am I hearing that correctly?
I think, yes, that's exactly it. Because totally, those things are out of your control. And I don't think one should, and I don't think I do, perceive the randomness and the happenstance of jobs coming and going as failures necessarily. But I think it's the feeling of like, it's like the internalized feeling I get from those things not going forward.
I understand. That's very interesting because everyone's got such different takes, and it helps me and it helps everyone listening like understand that failure is such a loaded word and it means so many things to so many different people. And it's not just that's a failure.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Which that label feels not right for hurdles in your experience or your career.
Yeah,
they don't feel like failures.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I don't. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. It's tough.
It is. I still don't have one. I've been doing this podcast in particular.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. That makes me feel better.
Yeah. No, it's a unique experience. It's like, I've said this example 100 times, but I think it's a great example. I had a lady on this podcast and she has a best-selling book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I love playing it because it's an amazing book. But essentially, I think she tried to sell it. I think it got rejected over 20 times. And so is that a failure that she didn't sell it? No, I assume she took on the feedback. She kept on putting herself out there. She knew she had that knowing that this book was going to help people, whatever her mission was. And eventually she sold it. And so people can say that's a failure along the way, but it's not. She's just potentially pivoting and changing and moving in a different or better direction.
For sure. And I think that is that you have to, it's almost like failure can't even be in your vocabulary. When I talked about the companion that's with you always, maybe that's not failure itself, but is more the fear of failure. That is the constant companion. And failure itself, maybe there is no such thing.
Yeah, I think gathering from what we're talking about as well is that the failure is like giving up or letting the fear overtake you.
Yeah, that sounds right. Right.
We're geniuses. Have you had moments, because I've heard you speak about this before, fear is prevalent for everyone and everyone has fear and it manifests in so many different ways. And I can't remember which podcast it was, but you spoke about how there is sometimes constant fear trying something different on you. But hearing you and listening to you also outside of the podcast, to be able to do improv for that long, I've spoken about the 8 years of resilience, and then now you're a leading lady, you're a writer, you've done everything there is. what's kind of been the relationship with fear in your career of like when it happens, do you just push through? Is it a concept you think about? I'm throwing a lot at you. We'll see where we go.
Right, right. I mean, I of course experience fear all the time. And I think the thing that I learned with improv that I then carry over into other aspects of my life as it pertains to fear is that I've just gotten used to feeling it, where it doesn't take over or it doesn't stop me. It's because when you're doing improv, it's like, this is insane. We're all just like, we have no idea what we're going to say. We don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to go on stage and find something for however long. And there's always, there's never a part of me that's like, I don't get nervous anymore. It's more that I'm just used to that nervous feeling. And so it doesn't consume me the way it used to.
So it's
and
there,
I think
but you
fear
kick
is
down
the
the
same
door.
way.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting. And improv's such a good example because you can't really plan much. You can, I'm not sure if you would have done heaps of training before, but there's really not that much that you can do. If
Right.
it doesn't go well, yes, you can help and support your team, or I don't know if you do long or short form, you can like cut the scene. But that is real. Like to most people, improv's the scariest thing on the planet because you can't plan anything. But to be able to deal with that, and there's probably a lot of time, like probably a gazillion times where the scene's not going well, but now you've got like skill and ability to quickly turn it around. That is so overwhelming to when I speak to people that haven't done improv, and learning that in my very small, limited knowledge has really helped with, so what, you just change, you pivot, you alter, or you
pivot. And I think you again, the fear, as it's good that it's there. Like I think fear is a healthy thing to have. The danger comes when it's controlling all the dials of what you're feeling or what you're experiencing. I think if you can give it its space, but not give it the steering wheel, then I think that's the balance of it. But I do think you have to like be okay with feeling fear at times because it's going to be there.
Well, the lady before you, she's all about you need to feel it to heal it. And so to acknowledge, if you don't acknowledge it, it's there, you're just sweeping it under the rug, and it can manifest in horrible ways, but hopefully not. But to acknowledge that it's there and you're like, hello, friend, but I'm not going to let you take over. That's like mastering it. So that's pretty big. I want you to teach me your secrets of how you become emotional.
No, to be clear, I haven't done this. I just think that's the right way.
I think you have to be able to do what you've done in all of these things that we've spoken about. I think you are the master.
Oh, well, that's nice.
You're going to have to teach me your secrets because you have to be. Like I've harped on a lot. 8 years doing all of the things that you've done to put you in the position where you are now, and just even like writing, which you're now doing as well. You're acting, you become a leading lady, which is amazing. Congratulations. And you've done like 50 billion things. There's constant fear, and perhaps the fear could say, you know what, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to do this, but you do it. The improv example where there's fear all the time and you still get up and you're not afraid to, we spoke about trust and vulnerability and collaboration and working with people, but also there's random strangers. Even to do a podcast like this, for example, it's vulnerable. So you obviously have a great relationship with fear because it sounds like you don't let it take over and steer you in a worse direction or a bad direction, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Teach me your ways.
I mean, I just have gotten used to feeling that way.
Yeah.
Just gotten used to just, I don't know. It's like with improv, you do it enough where you get to a point where you're just like in a flow state with it.
that's the goal. That's the best
That's the
feeling.
goal.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and I feel like that's true of any kind of craft that you dedicate so much time to, any musical instrument, or if you're a runner, like you hear this experience a lot where you get into this flow state with it. But yeah, I don't think there was ever a moment where I was consciously like, I have to control my fear. It was just from the doing it and losing myself in the moment of the doing it that helped quiet that.
That's the mastery. You're doing something. We can have the
Right.
theoretical game where I acknowledge you, I will do this, but you're actually just doing something that you like.
Yeah.
And that brings you
exactly.
joy. That kind of, that overrides everything.
Yes. Yep.
And you mentioned that did you say you do running now?
Oh no, I said people do that with running.
Oh.
So I hear.
Yeah.
I have tried to do that in the past because I think runners are so cool, but that's not me.
Yep. Fair enough. Okay. I've written down probably the most points, which is a huge positive to you, of just so many insightful things that you've said. When you became a leading lady, what was that like? Have you reflected on the journey?
Yes. Oh my gosh. The thing that I learned pretty early on in pursuing acting is that, I'm not that type. When I first started, I had dreams of doing that, of course, and doing all the character parts too. But definitely leading lady was in there. And then I think going to theater school, I learned very quickly, like, oh no, I'm not gonna get cast as a leading lady. I'm like, I don't have the looks for it, or I'm too goofy, or there was something early on where I was like, I need to focus instead on like really throwing myself into pursuing these not leading lady roles, which you could argue are sometimes juicier. The supporting role, the character roles, like all of that.
I do. That's where I want to be. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that getting to step into that space that feels like it was that those doors were closed to me. And I guess a lot of it does have to do with how I perceive you think of a leading lady and you think, oh, she's got to fit this definition, or she has to check these boxes. And I, for a long time, was like, oh, I don't check a lot of those boxes. So I think I need to like understand that that's not a zone for me. So then getting the chance to step into that zone has been so thrilling and exciting. And I think I would be so happy for the rest of my life to only do character roles, to only do like that is like my spirit.
oh, cool.
To get to be a character actor in a leading role. Oh, I mean, that's like when I think of my role models, I think Toni Collette. Toni Collette is like that to me, where she can do anything, and she does a ton of character roles. She does a ton of leading lady roles, but she brings such beautiful specificity to the leading lady roles that she does, that I think I would love to do too.
I love the passion and enthusiasm and love that you talk about it, because you speak about that's just the love of the craft, what you just spoke about. Because
Right.
there is that there are people, and there's no judgment whatsoever, and I was one of them, where we're like, we have to be the number one on the call sheet the whole time. There's like 3 people in the world that are like that, and it's not necessarily practical. And I know this industry,
Yeah.
that word practical is not a word that should be in our vocabulary, but to see like everything that you've done and the joy, that's so great to hear. And that's a huge credit to the work that you've put in. And yeah, I just think that's amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So I've got so many points. There's like 100,000 points in my mind of where we could take this. Also with Hollywood, there is that perception game that I like to call it. And we've had so many examples where someone didn't get a role because they were too small or their eye color was different, or someone thought they looked this way, but a casting person thought they looked another way. And it can be a bit of a minefield because we see ourselves in one certain way, and a casting person can see us, or whoever, the producers or whatever, see us in a completely different area. And it's kind of weird when you hear some actors, they want to do this and like, nah, you're more this. So then you have to like prove to the casting person that you're this. And it can sometimes really damage your sense of self because what's real? We don't know. It's just someone's perception of us. Have you had a bit of a relationship with that aspect with?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember a phone call. How do I put this? Someone once told me that I needed to figure out what type I was going to be and fully lean into that. Like that the idea of, oh, I want to be every type. I want to be able, isn't that what an actor is? Like we do all the types. And it was presented to me like, pick a lane and stick with it. And then do things in your life that set you up for pursuing a career in that lane. So I think that it is internalizing the subjective feedback from whoever's making decisions, directors, casting directors, like agents, whoever. It's just, you need to hear feedback, but I also think that I think that the way through is to believe that you can, you will, you're capable of doing all of it. There's no limitation. And I actually think the time we're in now is very exciting because I feel like it's no longer like there's a very cookie cutter definition of a movie star, for example. Like I feel like there's all different types of stories being told, all different types of people telling those stories. And so it feels like now more than ever, if you don't want to be constrained to one type, you don't need to be. You can be cast in all of these things, and believing that you can and going out for it, even if you have in your head like, oh, they'll probably want blank for this. But you don't know. They could want you.
You are right. That is, you should do a TED talk because that is beautiful and it's inspiring. And you're right. There's so many different avenues to get ourselves seen as well.
Right.
And also on that, like you've done writing now, and writing also puts you in another position to succeed as well. And I know that you mentioned Clear at the start of the podcast, but you guys have written a role for yourself, for example.
Yes.
And just doing avenues like that, first of all, it probably makes you a better actor, and it just gives you a nice range of like being in this industry.
That was that experience of working with Clea on that movie and then getting to craft that character together, because we knew very early on in the writing process that there would be these sisters. And when we had kind of brainstormed around one of the sisters being doesn't totally belong with her family, is a little bit of an oddball, I laid claim to that character right away. I was like, I want to be her. And so we like crafted it with that in mind, and had so much fun building this character. And I think that was such an amazing experience for me, because getting to, it's that idea of I just created for myself with Clea an opportunity in which I get to do what I love. So what a success. Like that. And that was a self-generated opportunity, which was even more rewarding. And that definitely opened my eyes to, well, wait a minute, I could I could write all these different parts for myself and parts that I dream of doing. I don't have to wait for someone's permission or for someone else to create it, and then I hopefully get a shot at it, which is also, that also happens. But I think it's so empowering to create that for yourself, and there's really no reason not to. I mean, like, everybody's got a phone. You make videos, people are making content. There's like, it's just, the power is in your hands, I think, and that's really nice feeling.
I agree. When I was first, thinking, how do I do this? I'm like, I have no acting reel. I don't have anything. But now that I've written like 7 individual scripts, I've written a whole bunch of skits. No one knows if I can act or not, but I know that I've written roles not purely so I can play them, but I've just written something that I think is important, or I want to give back. And I'm like, oh, I can play that role in that script. I can do that one. I can do that one. And it's like pretty exciting to know, because there was no way I would, at this stage where I am, be able to play that. And so fingers crossed, hopefully at least this one hopefully gets sold, there'll be opportunities.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. It's just really exciting. And also it changes also the brain in a sense. Like when you're writing with Claire, like I know she's amazing, and you guys are obviously besties if you're doing the escape rooms together. It's nice and exciting to also see yourself in a character, and you're also being true to the script as well. Yeah,
and to have Clea's total support in that, because from the beginning, this was like a story that was personal to her. She was going to direct it. She was in charge of the whole movie, and so having her trust me and believe in me and create that character and give me the opportunity to play that character, like she really advocated for me to do that. And awesome. Yes, having a partner in her where she was such a champion of me and of the project, it just meant the world.
Oh, that's so nice that when you can find someone that you're like on the same page and you can just work together. There's all the other bonuses that you actually get to be in it as well, but just to work with someone, learn from them, you're obviously great friends. That in itself is also the dream, to get paid to work with a friend.
That is the dream. Oh, yes, to just collaborate with people you love and make things you care about. That is the dream. And that doesn't have to be something big and fancy. That can be intimate and small, and could be any size, and it's just as important.
Oh, okay. We're going to have to do a part 2, because I've written down 200,000 questions. But I've even looking at notes that, you're a writer on Big Mouth, and that's a hilarious show, and this has provided more opportunities. Who would have thought from when you were first starting that your career would look like this, and it's only going to get bigger and better?
Oh, thank you, Michael.
I am very proud of you, and I'm not just saying that. To wrap up the podcast, we're going to do a quick rapid fire segment. So the first thing that springs to mind, but you can take your time to think about it if you need.
Okay.
So you're ready to go?
I'm ready.
What are you most proud of?
Who I'm most proud of? Oh, I think I'm most proud of the people that I've been lucky enough to surround myself with.
Ooh, great answer. I'm not going to comment on them because I'll derail them.
Okay. No, it's great. But if you could give me a validation after everyone, that would be great.
You've already got my validation for many years. This is just a selfish question. I don't normally ask about the specifics, but everyone has a funny story, and maybe you do. What was it like working? Were you on Curb?
Yeah.
What was it like working on Curb? And do you have a funny Larry David story?
Oh my gosh. It was so much fun working on Curb. Larry is one thing that I mean, you could probably guess this from a man who's been doing comedy for decades. But one thing that I experienced with him that I thought was so wonderful and endearing is how hard he laughs at everything everyone's doing.
Oh, really? That's great.
Like you don't experience a Larry David character in Curb you know, laughing, like losing and laughing at all the jokes all the time. But Larry David in real life is that he delights in the play, because with Curb, it's pretty much improvised. Like they give you, instead of a scene with dialogue, they give you a description of what should happen in this scene, but you find it, you improvise and find it. So being with him, I think, and it was just so fun to see him relish the play. Like he was very playful and very
That's
giggly.
so funny. Like a cute old man that just loves it. So
yeah, I loved it. It was
someone
great.
said that he loves it when you bag him. Like you can call him horrible names. He just like
he just loves it. I know. I think I told him to get the fuck out or something, and he was just like, yeah, he loves it.
I'd love to like do a documentary on him, like be a fly on the wall, but that's one of the goals.
Yeah, I
what
would
is
watch that.
This could get you into trouble. What is the most fun you've had on set? You don't need to name it.
Oh boy. Oh my God. Ugh. I mean, it's very impossible to pick the most fun, but an example of fun. Because that's the thing, is every job is the most fun. You know what I mean? Like it's impossible to rate them, because you're doing what you love and with great people, and you're just always having fun. But I think that the times when I've been on set where it's a big group scene and everybody's got a different thing going on and it feels very play-like, where the energy is so it's you're bouncing off each other, the momentum's going, you're like, I think specifically the scene that I had so much fun shooting in Happiest Season was this scene in the kitchen where I'm not sure if you remember this in the movie, but we're like making Christmas cookies, and I'm standing next to Allison and Mary, and we're making these cookies, and there's a lot happening, like Mackenzie's character and Kristen's character, they're talking about plans or whatever. There's a lot happening in that scene, but just existing and living in that scene and making cookies and annoying Mary and annoying Allison with the way I kept trying to get involved with the cookies. It was just so much fun. It was like the dynamics in that family felt so alive in that moment. And it was just a joy. Yeah. We just lost ourselves in it. It was so fun.
We were talking about pathways at the start of how you didn't know the best pathway to get into it, but you've provided an amazing pathway for so many people. So I thought I would make a comment on that.
Michael, thank you.
No problem. And then we also briefly spoke about intuition, and I don't even know what to ask in this format, because we can speak about that one for so long as well. Is intuition something that you've been thinking about, or has it been something on your mind, or you're more aware of it later in your life?
It has been on my mind a lot recently. And I think what I have become aware of as I've gotten older is how important it is. I think as a young person, I was in touch with it. I mean, I'm a very like feely person. So I feel like I always had a connection with my intuition, but as I've gotten older, I've very much come to put that a lot of stock in my intuition and know how important it is, and have been actively trying to turn up the volume on that conversation between myself and my intuition. Like, as I think it's there for everybody. We all have it. It's just a matter of like fine tuning it so you can hear it properly. And I think that has been the journey.
Amazing. And what's been your special ingredient to work all these years?
Oh God. I think my special ingredient, would be the joy of doing it.
I'm not allowed to comment. So the next one, that was still very
Oh God, I hope that was good.
good. If money
Thanks,
wasn't
God.
a factor, what would you be doing differently?
Oh, if money wasn't a factor, then I would be using that money to then make more things. I think if money wasn't a factor, I think I would hopefully jump a couple steps in the process of trying to create things and just get it created. Does that make sense?
That's the goal for me. So.
Okay, great. Okay, great. We have the same goal. Okay, good.
What keeps you in a positive mindset when things aren't going great?
I think it's just faith.
Religious, spiritual, knowing something else?
No, not religious or spiritual, or kind of spiritual, I guess, but just a trust in that it's gonna happen. I guess that's the thing that keeps me going.
I love it. Last few, what's the next big dream or goal?
Next big dream or goal, I think getting to Clea and I have another project that we're working on that it would be a dream if we got to do it. So I'm keeping everything crossed. And then there's
not if, when.
When. And then there's other things that I've written with people that if they were to happen, when they happen,
Great correction.
it would be a dream.
Amazing. Biggest pet peeve?
Oh, it's when I can't hear sounds fully. It's when like, for example, if I'm in a room and in the room next to me, someone's playing really loud music and I'm only hearing the bass, or I'm only hearing like a kind of muffled version of the music, that drives me crazy. Either I want to hear what it is, or I can't hear it, because then I'll just be thinking about that rhythm over and over again. Yeah. And the same is true of voices. If I hear people talking next door, then it's just a wah, wah, wah. It's the like teacher from Charlie Brown or something, where it's like wah, 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 wah. I cannot bear it. I have to actually hear what they're saying, or I can't hear them at all.
Knock on the door and say, "You guys, just make yourself at home," and I continue. I was already here.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yep.
Have this conversation with me.
If you could have any superhero power in the world, what would it be and why?
If I had any superhero power in the world, oh my gosh, I think I would want to. I mean, God, I feel like the standard answer is to fly, which would be great. I think it would be very cool. Oh God, there's so many problems in the world that need to be addressed.
We spoke about the metric system being the only one off air.
Maybe it would be to like get rid of the metric system.
Yeah.
I think it would maybe be to, oh God, freaking help in some way. I don't know.
It'd be like just shout like the money man, or what's the money man? Anyway, and just dish out money to everyone.
Yeah, that would be a great superpower. But money still would have value. You know what I mean? Like money, yes. But I would have access to all of it and could give it out to everybody.
That's a cool one. That's a unique one.
Okay, great.
Is there any advice you'd like to give people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps are a bit fearful of doing so?
Oh no, go do it. Go do it. That's my advice, is go do it. If you want to try it, then go do it. Oh my gosh, that's like what life is, isn't it?
I agree. That's the
Okay.
I'll do it. Okay.
Go do it.
Last one. Last two. If you could go back into a time when you were first starting out, what advice would you give yourself and why?
The advice I would give myself is don't worry about results.
The last one, before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you and all your bazillion other things, what is the one question I should have asked you?
Oh my gosh. The one question you should have asked me was, why haven't you put anything up on your walls?
Oh, this wall?
No, that's what you should have asked me.
I'm also sensitive about my wall as well.
No, so am I. That's fine.
That is hilarious. And why haven't you put anything on your wall?
Oh God, I don't have an answer for you, but that's what you should have asked me.
I understand that because I've moved homes and I've got my bookcase on the right of me and I've got all of my figurines and stuff, but it just wouldn't work.
It's hard.
I know these are the challenges. We were talking about redoing our bathrooms, and the next step is obviously doing our walls.
I know. Well, hey, I haven't done mine either, and I should take my own advice about just trying new things, because I get very intimidated by, well, if I put one thing up on the wall, then oh God, does that mean that I can't take it down again? And then, well, I have to reimagine the whole. Just do it. Start
small and just get a framed photo of just you. No one else.
I have a ton of those, so that's perfect.
So maybe just cover it.
Yeah, maybe I'll do. Yeah. That's good.
Start small and build big. Is there anything else that you wanted to tie up or anything before we ask how people can follow you, or you?
Oh no, this was great. This was a very such a fun conversation, and I learned a lot. It's great.
Thank you. That warms my heart. So before we go, how can people follow you, keep up to date with you, and see all the amazing things that you're doing?
You can follow me. I'm on Instagram at Mary Hollandaise.
Oh, I like that.
The sauce.
Yep.
And then I post, if I'm in a thing, I'll definitely post it on there. So yeah, that's where you can keep up with what's happening.
Amazing. That'll be in the episode notes below so people can check it out. You are amazing. You're wise. You're empowering. You're positive.
Oh, Michael.
I've taken so much out of this chat, and thank you so much.
Have I.
We're going to have to do this again because you're amazing.
Let's do it. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it. This was such a great conversation, and I too learned a lot. Very grateful.
Mary talks about the idea of arriving, i.e. the common mental chatter we've all had, if I just get the insert blank, then I'll be okay. She explains that this way of thinking is not the point or even a healthy goal to have. If we signal to ourselves that all our problems will be resolved by the achievement of one thing that may or may not happen, then we're in for a hard time and probably won't be able to enjoy the wins along the way. She outlines that the success is in the doing, in the achievement of the little goals, the momentum, and the tasks ticked off. The idea of arriving or being this big shot successful human is merely an unattainable goal and not really realistic, let alone something we can control. It is these expectations or an idea of success that takes us away from living in the moment. Mary further highlights how it's important to learn to make peace with one's expectations and enjoy what's happening now. And that's where the real success lies. I'll leave you with this epic quote by Eckhart Tolle: "Realize deeply the present moment is all you'll ever have." Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.